Hey guys, so in Korea, actors, directors, producers are not backing down in calling out the police and the media for their role in why actor Lee Sun-kyun, the star of Parasite and many other beloved K-dramas and films, had to take his own life last year amid a very tumultuous investigation involving the seedy underground nightlife in Korea. And yes, it was about calling for justice and also really trying to identify if there were any lapses in the investigation, particularly releasing information and being shady. Now we're going to parse through some of the language because amid some of the sadness and also amid some of the self-editing, we're going to get to the heart of the matter, because I think what they're really trying to point out here is that there's a very scary underground economy dealing with the police and the media about to be established if we just let this Lee Sun-kyun case go and not have any ramifications or hold any people accountable. It's somewhat hard to talk about this because there's a lot of things going on at the same time. Before this press conference that was led by Academy Award-winning director Bong Joon-ho, I think, yes, there are definitely the emotions of sadness of seeing one of your own pass away, probably some guilt of not being really more there for your fellow compatriot during some of these scandals, and then also posthumously trying to get justice for his particular case. I'm sure all of that is there, and that is enough for a lot of people to be mobilized. However, in a little bit more of a skeptical look at Korean society, it takes one extra weight to get a lot of people mobilized and willing to put themselves out on the line. And I think this does show here that there is one level deeper to this situation that is definitely being stated if you are the police or the media or you're kind of on the inside, but to the general public, it's not as clear, and we need the general public to be on board. And that is that this community of artists are looking at this situation and they're saying like, yes, this is very sad for Lee Sun-kyun, but oh crap, we are about to enter an era. If this just goes under the rug, we are about to enter an era where we as artists are going to be the sacrificial lamb for the economic or promotional or power benefit of the police, media, and political establishment. Why? Because from this case, we saw that in Lee Sun-kyun's case, that these police were able to, whether it was leaked or whether it was sanctioned, or there's definitely not a lot of consequences for leaking out information from an ongoing investigation that was way too premature, that normally would not make it out into the public. Also, when he was going in for questioning, with all the photo line and all the paparazzi, and even G-Dragon going in for all the photo line and paparazzi, usually that would be done very quietly. What this starts to show is that the police can now, hey, if we have any investigation that involves celebrities, we can use this to our advantage and try to get promotions. We can try to get, more cred, and we can get more budget. We can get more power. We could start wielding this, for our benefit, and then, really start to even threaten people. I think that's what this group of artists is seeing down the pike. You gotta realize a lot of these directors and producers and actors, they're the ones with the scripts that really are the closest to the nitty-gritty realness of Korea. They can see something like, they can see the truth not being far from fiction better than anybody else. And this is what I also see in their kind of presentation and call, saying like, you guys, society, if you're not careful, we're going to go down this rabbit hole where now in this situation where in normal times, when the reporters are asking like, hey, we heard this rumor, we heard that, or, and the police are saying like, we can't comment on it because it's an ongoing investigation. That is acceptable because you're not supposed to release information that you don't even think is credible yet, and you haven't even finished as a police person to vet out. And we saw from this, and I'm going to give examples of, according to some of the actual testimonies made by the mini madam, how shady it was and how shady the police were for releasing the information. A little bit later, we have some of the police reports and transcripts. But essentially, it would go like this. The police would be like, hey, we can release this information on active investigations for a promotion. But then somebody might say like, hey, but what if the information isn't proven? Well, the person would be like, hey, but the Lee Sun-kyun case shows that it doesn't really matter if it's not proven, if it's hearsay, if it's a little premature. It got us a lot of rewards and it got us a lot of benefits. And somebody says like, well, what happens if people's lives are ruined? They'd be like, well, we didn't ruin them. The second stage would be, even to then if the police would just make up or coerce perhaps witnesses to make up even more shocking allegations for a promotion, because it doesn't matter if it's not true or not. You can just throw it out into the public and then take care of stuff, later after people don't really care about the case, but then you've collected all your points as, whatever, like doing a high profile case. And then you can also link up with people in the political establishment who want to use you as a conduit to flood the news with something to divert people's attention from whatever they don't want to be focused on. So people are asking, was there something going on in the news during the whole G-Dragon Lee Sun-kyun case that perhaps, this at least definitely benefited from, if not was a direct, call to kind of a media station being like, look, push this because, I don't want media attention focused on my situation. Yeah, it could. Who would make that call and who would be saying, I don't want attention brought to my wife who's going through an insider stock trading scandal right now with more evidence that's come to light. Who would that be on the phone call? Yeah, the president of South Korea. Who would he be talking about? Yeah, his wife. Yeah, the wife. So during that time, and even during now, that is one case. Not saying that that's what happened, but very conveniently, it was during that time. And at a very minimum, these artists are seeing a situation where that's an easy phone call to make, when now if you have a much more compliant police department who's willing to go along with that, if you throw more benefits their way. Why do we say that? Because, well, there have been some reports that were critical about the police department, saying that there have been promotions within this division over at Incheon right after all of this high-profile drug investigation, especially because it was a mandate by the president of South Korea saying, like, we're going to crack down on drugs in South Korea. And then you have Incheon making these high-profile investigations. But when you really look at it, what have they actually accomplished to battle the drug situation in South Korea? They brought a lot of attention and unwarranted attention and unfair, damaging attention to G-Dragon and Lee Sun-kyun, but did they actually go after the distributors who's probably, them really quiet in jail right now, or the system of operations of distribution with the high-end room salons, or even the madams that we're talking about right now? in terms of the circle of criminality, are probably the lowest on the totem pole, and we're barely even getting to them because they threw all these celebrities in front of our faces, and yet they had more promotions this year than in previous years. Now, Incheon Metropolitan Police have countered that to saying like, oh, we've had promotions that have been delayed. That's why we've had a record amount of promotions, and even one person from that drug investigation unit didn't get his promotion. But nonetheless, they did have record-breaking number of promotions that went through basically this week that basically showed, performance. And then they're like, oh, it's not just immediate performance, it's performance over years. Yeah. Well, if in any case, in some situations when there is so much heat or criticism, even if you're due a promotion, there are cases where the company would just be like, well, sorry, we know you're due for a promotion, but the climate has been so critical, we're just going to have to pause it and wait a year. That possibility is usually a lot more realistic than saying like, oh, it's just because it was backed up. This makes a signal that actually, hey, you can sacrifice the well-being of celebrities for your own personal benefit. You will not face the consequences if you leak and even sell information of an ongoing investigation to hungry media outlets. And so the press conference pointed out in particular, they did talk about like online media, new media, but they honed in on KBS, which is essentially the nation's broadcasting network, and in particular the November 24th report that they made on Lee Sun-kyun. And when I went back to go look at it, it did look like, the newscaster was presenting it almost gleefully, like, hey, we caught him. But then there was nothing that they actually caught. Remember, this was a case about drug distribution, and even Lee Sun-kyun's role in it would be maybe a recreational user. And the information that they gave was based on the testimony of Kim Nam-hee, the junior madam, who is not a credible witness whatsoever, as we'll go into just in a little bit. But what was even shadier about this, when they went through the story, they went over the claims that the mini madam had said. They said, Lee Sun-kyun says that they're all lies. And then they released recordings of a phone call, which we haven't done on this channel. Essentially, all it said was, hey, Lee Sun-kyun was saying like, hey, I really like you, saying it to the madam. And the madam was like, well, I don't know, because, basically playing all coy. I don't know because, and then the madam trying to trap him into acknowledging that he perhaps had smoked MJ, but it sounded like he was like, huh? What? No. All that recording really did, though, was perhaps really prove that he had feelings and affections for a low-class hoe that he probably shouldn't have. And if you were trying to say like this is a case or investigation into some extramarital relationship, yeah, maybe this would be evidence for the guilty pile, but it had nothing to do with this investigation when it is the South Korea's war on drugs. So Bong Joon-ho, the director of Parasite, called for an investigation into the police methods into this case, and also for the media to really take a look into how they covered this case. But on a bigger macro level, he's also wanting to make sure that there is no abuse of power in this system that's going to especially develop, because the way things are going now, it's open season now on celebrities in Korea. Really, what is going to stop some of these hungry police officers from going and stepping over the line and redrawing the line? Nothing. And I've heard from people in Korea that who know people who work in the police departments, that it is a very hungry system, and people are looking for things. And when you really do look at the Korean employment system, it is very unfair. You have a much shorter career, and you have, if it's not forced retirement, basically coerced early retirement, like in your early 50s. So there is a very compressed period of time for you to make it. So when you're kind of wondering sometimes, like, why are the police so corrupt, or why are they people doing this? A lot of times, these people, they got to put their kids through college. They got to, save up for retirement. They got like a pay for a house and inflation and everything. And it's such a short amount of time that you can actually work at the career that you were supposed to try to work at. So that a lot of people will cut corners. And if it means sacrificing a celebrity who they think has already gotten so much in the world anyway, they will do it. All right, so we need some examples, right? Examples of the police from this particular investigation. So remember how Kim Nam-hee is now in jail. She was taken into custody all the way back in October, and the sit-downs with her started then. And so Caracula, the YouTuber from the last video that we went over, got some of the police reports. Apparently there have been about 17. Caracula has about 11 of them, but we're going to go over about the first 4 that basically establishes how uncredible and unreliable of a witness Kim Nam-hee was from the beginning, and yet from the beginning the police were leaking the information to the media. Okay, in the first witness, what do you call it? Interrogation of Kim Nam-hee, the mini madam. They asked her, hey, before you got caught, you were hiding out at a friend's house in Songpa, which is like East Gangnam, but then east of Gangnam in Seoul. And the police found her having like a mini growing operation that looked like it was like MJ that she was growing. And she said that it was organic lettuce for her turtles. And they were just like, no, girl, this is not lettuce. It's not organic. And where's your turtle? And they asked her, why weren't you living at home? Why are you hiding out at your friend's house? And she's like, oh, I was afraid of the hackers. And when the police asked, hey, aren't you accomplices with the hackers? She said, no, I am a victim. And then they actually found like a pot pipe, and they asked her about it, and she said no comment since she didn't do drugs. Okay, then in her second interrogation, her urine sample had tested positive for drugs, and not just MJ, not her organic lettuce that she had grown for her turtle. And the police asked her about it, and she said, I'm going to plead the fifth. So she's saying, like, I'm not going to say anything. Okay, so she had already been caught in a lie, saying, like, this lettuce from the beginning, she was growing lettuce for her turtle, which was she was actually growing and manufacturing drugs, and that she said she never did drugs, and then her drug test came out positive for multiple drugs. Okay, so the third interrogation was on October 20th, and this is when she talked about Lee Sun-kyun. She said that Mr. Kang brought Lee Sun-kyun to the Good Place. That's the name of the high-end hostess bar. And she said this is when the police said this is when she said that she and Lee Sun-kyun went over to her house and did substances either on her bed or the sofa. And then on like 5 days later, on October 25th, it was published in a newspaper, Gyeonggi Shinmun. It's not like a huge newspaper, it's more like a local newspaper. But still, 5 days later. Now, this is just on her testimony. Lee Sun-kyun was booked on October 23rd for questioning. None of these things really had been resolved or proven, and they're publishing this type of situation. Little bit shady lot shady from the police. Fourth interrogation was the day after. On the 21st, Kim Nami starts talking about G-Dragon, and she says, I have a video of G-Dragon partying about a year ago on November 30th, 2022, and she claims that he had Coca-Cola. And also on October 25th, this story about GD came out with no proof or corroboration. And at that time, 4 days later, they got to the 8th questioning session by then, the police asked her to clarify, and she said that, well, it was either G-Dragon or another guest who did it, but if they didn't do it, then you as the police, you don't have to say they did it. So after the media report went out about G-Dragon, with Coca-Cola, perhaps in the bathroom, she said he's acting weird. She didn't see anything directly. She's saying it's either definitely one or the other. But then the shocking statement that she made to the police was, hey, but if you guys keep investigating and it turns out he didn't actually really do it, then just say that he actually didn't do it. So she herself is basically saying what, this is just what I think. You guys be the final judge. You guys take care of it. So that's totally shady on her part, because she actually had said that, GD was doing something before, then she kind of walked back her statement, and then she's just saying hey, police, why don't you decide, what the truth is? That's totally shady on her part. But then even what's shadier is that the police are supposed to be a lot more responsible, and not even based on that, they should actually be investigating and not releasing all of this information, trying to themselves get a one-up and try to get promoted based on this situation. So the police should really have taken into account that she's a convicted drug felon 6 times. She went to jail. She even started out the latest questioning being caught in a lie. Then the police took her testimony as the truth and leaked it out as credible information. How is that not malfeasance and malpractice on the part of the police? And how is that not, at the very least, unconscionable to the careers and well-being and life of Lee Sun-kyun and G-Dragon? There's really no excuse for that. And I'm glad that the artistic community is standing up, because now I think they realize that any one of them could be the next victim, and any one of them can be the target for open season whenever somebody wants to use them for their purposes, to then blanket the media to cover up somebody more powerful, and then also give a reward to the police for so-called doing something good, making it even more of a spectacular charge. And then when actually the truth is investigated, people have moved on, and everybody gets away scot-free, but the celebrity is the one that is left in tatters with their life destroyed. So I think that is what the Lee Sun-kyun movement, or the movement for the Lee Sun-kyun law, is all about, is to protect people from unfair abuse of power. It's not just about celebrities. Celebrities today, then it starts to trickle down to the ordinary person. And we're talking about things that is a regression of democracy. So, you guys, not a good situation in Korea. What do you guys think? Put your comments below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and see you again next time. Bye-bye.